If one thing is true about dinosaurs, it's that they were an immensely diverse group of animals. They took on a multitude of different forms, shapes, and sizes, from the mighty sauropods to the weird and wonderful theropods, right through to the near countless species of ornithischians. While dinosaurs are typically known as a result of their often immense sizes, not all of them were giants. Many, in fact, were no larger than modern birds, darting through the undergrowth and gliding through the tops of trees. While many of these miniature monsters were theropods, small dinosaurs could be found all throughout the Mesozoic tree of life, and today we will be meeting them. Join us as we explore the natural history of some of the very smallest dinosaurs ever to live in the Mesozoic world. Rather than explore a list of the smallest of all dinosaurs, we will be taking a look at some of the smallest examples of dinosaurs of individual groups to better explore the diversity of the prehistoric world. Prehistoric China was essentially a living Garden of Eden for small feathered animals. Ancient birds and their immediate ancestors, theropod dinosaurs, were present here in huge numbers, and the late Jurassic anchiornid Eosinopteryx might just be the smallest of them all. Eosinopteryx brevipenna, whose name roughly translates into English as Chinese dawnwing with short feathers, was a miniature theropod from the late Jurassic period of China's western Liaoning province. This is a region that has presented paleontologists with plenty of immaculately preserved feathered dinosaur fossils over the years, some of which are so well preserved that scientists have even been able to determine the colors of some of the animals that once lived there. Eosinopteryx is only known from a single fossil, a near-complete skeleton of a young adult animal, which only measured 30 centimeters or 12 inches across. Considering that the animal was so tiny in life, it is remarkable that its fossil has preserved so well, surviving years of geological pressure and buildup to reveal a near-perfect outline of essentially the dinosaur's entire body. The skeleton reveals a large-eyed, bird-like animal with a very short snout, with primary wing feathers that were longer than the upper arms themselves, preventing flight. It would have been covered in a thick layer of short feathers across its body and life, with a particularly short tail and slender legs. It lacked any obvious tools to help it prey on other animals, such as sharp claws. It is thought then that this dinosaur primarily preyed upon insects, which it may have obtained by foraging in the leaf litter on the floor of its forested home. It was not well adapted to climbing, and so may have been a particularly speedy little animal in the face of danger, able to dart in and out of cover if a predator approached. While this animal was initially classified as a true odontid, it lacked the signature long snout and curved claws present in these dinosaurs. As such, further research placed this little animal in the family Anchiornithidae. Anchiornis is one of the aforementioned dinosaurs we do indeed know the coloration of. It was black with a red crest and white wings. Eosinopteryx may have had similar coloration to help it stand out to members of the same species. But its forest floor home has often seen paleoartists recreating this animal with dark, mottled brown colors along its back and limbs. Before sauropods were the towering colossi we know them as in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, they were significantly more humble in terms of size. These Triassic ancestors of the sauropods are referred to as prosauropods and represent a very early branch of the family tree, when these animals were beginning to find their footing as some of the largest herbivores on the planet. Massospondylus carinatus is therefore the smallest of all the sauropodomorph dinosaurs. a dog-sized bipedal animal with a long tail and the beginnings of a lengthy neck. At less than a meter in length, this little animal would lay the foundations for giants such as Argentinosaurus and Dreadnoughtus to appear on the scene millions of years later. Massospondylus walked on two legs and was able to free up its arms to grasp plant matter that hung from shrubs and short trees in its riverine wetland environment. It would have descended from small, possibly carnivorous stock that had branched out into new methods of feeding, allowing some of the very first sauropodomorphs to evolve. This diet would eventually help Massospondylus's descendants to grow into the largest land animals the world has ever known. Massospondylus lived in a warm, humid world dominated by rivers and lakes, and its small size meant that it was far from safe in the wetlands it called home. Large, predatory Rausuchid archosaurs related to dinosaurs prowled through the environments, whilst crocodilomorphs lurked just below the surface of the water. This little sauropodomorph had a long way to go before it would attain the heights of the Jurassic and Cretaceous, but it and its relatives succeeded. In the early Cretaceous period of what would one day become the Gippsland region of Victoria, Australia, the very smallest species in a lineage of massively successful dinosaurs would evolve. Galleonosaurus dorisei was a tiny ornithopod, the smallest member of the most successful lineage of ornithischian dinosaurs the Cretaceous period would see. Ornithopods were typically large, herbivorous ornithischian dinosaurs that were composed of the iguanodonts, hadrosaurids, and hypsilophodontids, amongst others. Ornithopods have been noted as being extremely widespread, found across almost the entire world during the latter half of the Mesozoic era. Galleonosaurus was a small bipedal dinosaur, approximately 45 centimeters in length. It hailed from a time when Australia was still connected to Antarctica, and this little dinosaur lived in a rift valley between the two continents. Due to its positioning on the globe, this dinosaur lived in a relatively cool environment, where mountain ranges populated with active volcanoes would have given way to temperate forests across their foothills. Isolated lakes and streams would have allowed these little dinosaurs to quench their thirst, while the abundance of cycads and conifers would have provided food. Galleonosaurus was a remarkably adaptable animal, as it appears to have survived several changes to the plant life in its ecosystem across the roughly 13 million years it was present in the area. As new plants evolved, Galleonosaurus was able to adapt its diet to feed on them, allowing it to live a relatively comfortable life in the ancient highlands of Australia, save for the occasional attacks from megaraptorans and colossal amphibian-like temnospondyls. Marginocephalians were some of the largest and most visually impressive dinosaurs of the Mesozoic, encompassing the clades of Pachycephalosauria and Ceratopsia. These groups were some of the most well-protected and heavily built animals of their time, and for the most part, they were often rather large. However, travel back to the late Jurassic period when the group was still very much finding its footing, and you will encounter a much different group of animals. Hualianceratops from the woodlands of what is now Western China was no larger than a spaniel. The tiny Ceratopsian, discovered in 2002 and named in 2015, was the smallest of its kind. A far cry from Triceratops, this dinosaur was most likely a resident of woodlands, where it thrived on the vegetation growing at ground level. Its tough beak would have been able to snip through plant stems, where teeth at the back of the mouth would have ground up the food. Several artists' impressions of this dinosaur have shown it with a quill-like structure at the base of its tail. integuments that we know for a fact some of this dinosaur's closest relatives had. Psittacosaurus, another small ceratopsian dinosaur, was equipped with these structures, most likely as a communicative tool. So it is not out of the question to picture little Hualianceratops with them as well. The animal's small size would have made it a nimble runner in an environment larger animals would find rather easy to get tangled in. Whilst many sources will claim Microraptor to be the smallest of the Dromaeosaurs, the crown does in fact go to the falcon-sized Zhongjianosaurus yangi, an animal that could quite comfortably perch on your wrist. This arboreal gliding raptor was in fact very similar in form to Microraptor, in the sense that it had long gliding feathers on its forelimbs and hind limbs, which would have been very efficient at carrying it from tree to tree in the ancient Chinese forests it called home. The two animals are thought to have possibly lived side by side even, in China's Yixiang Formation, one of the various sites in China to provide paleontologists with some of the most immaculately preserved fossils of all time. Small feathered theropods were common in the forests of the Yixiang Formation. Zhongjianosaurus would have been one of several dinosaurs that was adapted to climbing trees before launching itself through the canopy to escape a predator or catch its prey. That prey would have likely been insects or the very smallest mammals and reptiles that lived in the treetops. Zhongjianosaurus may also have supplemented its diet with vegetation, but no confident conclusion can be reached on this matter with the fossil content available. The known skeleton of this dinosaur was recovered from what would have been an ancient lake from 120 million years ago. The little dinosaur may have fallen in, and over the course of millions of years was preserved in exactly the position it came to rest in. Tyrannosaurids are famous for being some of the most fearsome and massive animals known in the fossil record. Tyrannosaurus, in fact, was one of the very biggest carnivorous dinosaurs, so it might surprise you to learn that some of its distant cousins were only a tiny fraction of its size. Dilong paradoxus, whose Latin name roughly translates to Emperor Dragon against received wisdom, was a 2-meter-long carnivore that inhabited the forests and floodplains of China's Yixiang Formation, living around the same time and in just about the same place as Zhongjianosaurus, the previous dinosaur on our list. Dilong was a slender, agile predator of small vertebrates that would have been able to stalk through woodlands and wooded areas after mammals and reptiles, as well as small dinosaurs. Dilong was the first Tyrannosauroid dinosaur that was confirmed to have had a covering of feathers. It was a simple coat that likely served to give the dinosaur a basic layer of protection against the elements, but they have been well preserved in fossils of this small hunter. Larger Tyrannosauroids have been discovered to have had scaly skin, which has led scientists to speculate that these feathers may have been lost as Tyrannosauroids continued to evolve, or that in larger species only the young had a layer of simple feathers covering their bodies. It might have been slightly larger than the other animals on this list, but Dilong and its ancient relatives still had a very, very long way to go before they attained the immense sizes of some of the end Cretaceous Tyrannosauroids. Take one look at the skeleton and the resemblance is there, though the skull structure is a dead giveaway, showing a slightly bulkier form to it than many other small theropods. So that was a rundown of some of the smallest dinosaurs within their clades. It may come as a surprise to learn just how small some species of dinosaur really were, but this was the case for many animals throughout the Mesozoic, especially the basal forms that appeared earlier on in the family trees. Such creatures are a testament to just how diverse and vivid the ancient natural world really was. Everywhere you looked, there would have been life, no matter how large it grew. We might remember the dinosaurs for their gigantic representatives, but there was indeed a whole world evolving in their shadows.